have inner work to do. Real Life, Real Faith is an opportunity to connect with Cheryl and her guests as they take you on a journey to help you become your authentic self. Whether you need help goal setting, developing coping skills, or connecting with a power greater than yourself, Cheryl is here to walk with you on your path to personal transformation. Get inspired as Cheryl lets you become an active participant, or just sit back and glean from the messages delivered. It's Real Life, Real Faith.
Hello and welcome to Real Life, Real Faith with Cheryl, Lacey, Donovan. I am your host, Cheryl, Lacey, Donovan. I have my sister girls with me here, Shamari and Bradley. Hello. Hey. Danica Carruthers. Hey. And Misty Early. And we're so glad that you decided to join us here today. We'd like to remind you that you can connect with us on Facebook at Real Life, Real Faith with Cheryl, Lacey, Donovan, and also on Twitter at Real Faith Mag, as in magazine. And lastly, you can visit our website, www.realliferealfaithtv.com. So today's broadcast, the main thing that we'll be talking about is the feminization of the African American male. But before we get to that, we're going to start talking about some of our hot topics. And Misty, you came up with something that was very interesting.
There has been at Citadel, I believe that's the way you pronounce it, military college, I believe. Some young people took it upon themselves to sing some Christmas carols in KKK looking attire.
Wow.
Much like the Ku Klux Klan, their wardrobe and that. And this is a military school, military cadets, and, and it's just so displeasing. It is, with everything that's going on in the nation right now, and for these young people to have done something like this, joke or not, whatever it is, it's not taken well by the college. They have all been expelled, and it's just sad. It's really sad.
Were they expelled or were they suspended?
I might have been wrong. I'm sorry.
Suspended.
Yeah, suspended.
Yeah, because that's what I read, that they were suspended and they should have been expelled.
Of course.
You know, and that goes back to know what we talked about before. There's no accountability for people doing these kinds of things, and that's why they feel they can continue to do it. But my question in this season is, whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Asian, who do you think you are that you are superior to somebody else? If we are all the created beings of God, God saw fit to do all of these different races. That's God's doing.
Yeah.
So why do you feel like there's any race of people that is superior to somebody else? And I go back to putting yourself in somebody else's position. But let me take it to your children. Wow. If your children were treated the way that you think is okay to treat other people, how would you feel? And this is the thing, we need to start bringing it back to center, bringing it back home, because this kind of thing really irritates me. But what irritates me more than them doing that is that they were only suspended. They should have been expelled. There needs to be, these people need to be held responsible for their actions, and for every action there is a consequence. And I don't feel like the consequences are strong enough for a lot of these things that are going on.
And that's why it continues to happen, because they see that other people have done this and they're only going to get a slap on the wrist for doing it. So they think that they can just take it. Oh, I'll take just this little punishment because I think this is something that's acceptable. And it's not acceptable in no shape, form, or fashion.
And I think that the other thing that worries me is they were in a military academy, which says to me that at some point they probably had aspirations of being in the military, so that these would be the representatives of our country in the military that would have to work with they definitely have to work with African Americans, in whatever branch, all races, in whatever branch they go into. So it is disheartening to see that, because I know, years ago in the military, when we were going through all of the racial things and all of the civil rights movement and all of that the people that fought in those wars did have to put up with racial discrimination. But what a slap in the face to go to fight for a country that you really want to believe in, and yet they don't respect you enough to create you equally when all of you are going to fight together. That's something wrong with that.
And what's so scary about it to me, Cheryl, is a lot of these people who do these things, they say that they're following God. or they say they're following Christ. Even slavery.
Yeah.
The Bible was used in so many instances to justify what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to talk to our audience, because if you really believe that God is the creator of all things, and at the end of the day, everything starts and ends with God. God has made so many different variations. So I talked about frogs, you know, some time back, and a couple programs back. There are so many varieties of frogs. Look at dogs. There are so many varieties of dogs. There are so many varieties of cats. So why do you feel like there's only supposed to be one breed of people, and this people is supposed to be superior? And we really need to start thinking a little bit deeper, because this thing is getting out of control, and people really need to start talking about it, doing something about it, not just going and protesting and holding signs, but really be willing to do something about it.
Changing policy.
Yes.
And that's I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just saying, it's the same thing. It's like there was one time the girl thought it was okay to paint her face for a Halloween costume and go into a school and do that. You know, you keep doing these things over and over and again, and what are you proving?
Nothing.
But what is your intention?
Exactly.
And what is your motivation behind
That's the thing.
it?
What is the motive?
What's
What is the motive?
Right.
And it, you know, and when I look at that, you know, during the civil rights era, they did protests, they did boycotts, they did sit-ins, but they also had the legal portion attached to it, so that they could go in and change policy. Let's go sue some people that are doing this foolishness. Let's go, you know, take some people to court. Whether we win or not, who cares? Let's let them know that we're going to put some teeth behind what we're doing, because right now there's nothing to it. All we're doing is sitting in and protesting, and nothing is changing. There's no repercussions for what's going on. A lot of people are just like you said, getting a slap on the hand and or getting let go. And to your point about who thinks they're so superior that there should only be one breed or race of people, brings me to what Donald Trump has said this week. I mean, I don't know how much more he can say that, you know. And what's even scarier, I actually
people are running behind you.
Well, not just people. African American people. I heard 3 women yesterday on a talk show that say that they actually support what he's saying. And my thing is, how can you fix your lips to say that, to be discriminatory to anybody else? And he's saying, you know, don't stop, you know, stop everybody that's a Muslim from coming into this country, when his manufacturers that are sewing his clothes are in Indonesia. 12% of the Indonesian, of the Muslim population is in Indonesia. Are you serious?
They're not putting it together.
No, I mean, he's just so ridiculous. I saw something posted on Facebook this week. It was 2 black women, and just the caption, they were talking about why Donald Trump should be whatever.
That's probably Diamond and Silk.
I refuse to even watch it. It's like, you know, I'm just not even going there, because I'm trying to keep my space clear of all this stuff. Woosah.
And what was funny, if it's the same thing that I saw, it was probably Diamond and Silk. I think they're at diamondandsilk.com or something. And the reason they got invited to that talk show was because the host thought it was a parody. They thought it was like satire. They thought the women were being funny.
But
the
they
women
were serious. Wow.
They were for real. They really.
I think it's a true representation of what money can buy you in the United
And
States.
that's what everybody's saying.
I really truly believe that, and integrity has nothing to do with it. What about the instance in which he met with several African American pastors?
Yep. And nobody can tell us what they talked about.
And some of them are supporting him now.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a publicity stunt as well. To get my name out there. You know, I'm going to stand for this so I can be seen.
Of course.
Yes, and I was thinking about that too. And a lot of people, they partake in foolishness because they feel like it's going to bring them some monetary value. It's going to give them some fame. It's going to give them some recognition. But again, we go back to, what is your motive? I go back to, what if it was your child? You know, would you want somebody, if your child was a Muslim, or supposing your child decides to be a Muslim, you can't stop your children from doing what they want to do, and then your child is going to be excommunicated out of the country. We really need to start going back to a heart space and a love space, because this sort of stuff is just ridiculous.
Yeah. And then he made the statement that when they were talking about some of the president made the statement about some of the Muslims that are here are our doctors and lawyers, and he went on to say athletes and things like that. And then Trump makes the ridiculous statement, there are no Muslim athletes. Who are the Muslim athletes? Where are they? Something like that he said. Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, they're Muslim. Boy, man, I don't know.
Study.
But that's that whole thing that we've been talking about, the sense of entitlement and superiority, which brings me to our primary topic today, which is the feminization of the African American male. And I wonder if some of that comes from the way that they see the African American male, and it's kind of a catch-22 because African American male is kind of like that because of the superiority complex and the entitlement thing that has made them feel inferior. But by the same token, there are things that they could do to take them to a different level, to take them out of that feeling of inferiority. So, I don't know what we do with that.
Well, there are a lot of single moms who are raising males, right? So I raised a male child as a single mom. And one of the things that I remember my son said when, his father and I separated was, "Mommy, now I'm the man of the house." And I said, "Oh no, baby, you're not." I said, "You are a little boy." I said, "That responsibility is not yours. You're not taking it on. I'm not giving it to you."
Right.
But a lot of these single moms, they make these boys feel like they're the man of the house. And I had an epiphany several months ago, because we have a lot of men. We have a lot of men who are like little boys. It's like little boys trapped in men's bodies. But when you're told that you're a man, you're the man of the house at 5, 6, your childhood cuts off. Now you try to step into man role because children want to please their mom. So you don't know what it is to be a man. And you're stuck in child mode. And so you have a lot of these men acting like little boys because they really don't know how to process what it is to be a man because they weren't taught. And I feel as a mom, I feel as mothers, we need to take a great responsibility for that.
Yes, I agree.
Because a lot of these single moms are keeping their boys, specifically, from having positive male role models. And I've heard a lot of men say that the reason why they don't come to try to connect with their children is because of the mother. And I can, that might sound wishy-washy in one sense, but I understand it in one sense too, because why am I going to go into a place that's going to be stressful and negative and not peaceful for me? And the children are suffering as a result.
I agree with that.
And I think we discussed it before. Can a woman properly raise a man? As a woman, it is our responsibility to find that male role model, to find a positive role model, and get these boys connected to them. And not just every now and then, but for them to spend quality time with them so that they can learn lessons from them. So I say, a woman can raise a male and do it in a proper way. And God said that he would be what we need him to be. So when you rely on God and you put him first in everything that you do, even raising a male child, you can raise him the proper way, asking God who to send my child to. Show me, God, what it is that I need to teach him that he needs to be able to stand as a strong male.
And as a woman, you can raise a male child, because I raised an amazing man. But I realized when I was raising him that I could not teach him to be a man. And I made sure that what he needed to learn that was available to him.
And that's what you do.
We are killing the male generation by withholding fathers from them. That's a whole nother show. That could take me there. Because there are these women out there who are upset with the fathers.
And you picked them.
I'm trying to watch my face so I don't make faces. But yes, you picked him. He was okay for you at that time. But now that he's made you mad, he's not good enough to help you raise your son. It's not hurting you. You're not hurting the father. You're hurting this child.
And on the flip side of that, the other part of it is what about the feminine young men that are growing up with a father that's actually there? He's present but absent.
Right. You're right about that.
Still no value, still no morals, because he wasn't taught how to be.
Right.
And then these men, these boys grow up to be males. Okay, only with hardware.
Yeah.
Okay, and nothing else to be able to give to the relationship but that.
Yes.
But look at these young men now who see, because men are protectors and providers, but you cannot know what you're not taught. So you have a lot of these men, right? So I say it goes back to the women, because you have a lot of these young men. They ain't nothing, ain't trying to be nothing, ain't trying to get nothing. I'm going Bahamian now. I'm sorry. When I get a little tense, my Bahamianism comes out. But now you have these young men who hook up with a girl who's ambitious, aspiring. She has her own car. She has her own place. And this man who is doing nothing can drop her to work and take her car. I see it all day. And lay up in her house where she's paying rent for and he's not doing anything. But see, nobody can do something to you. You allow it to be done.
That's why I wrote Women, What the Hell Are You Thinking Now?
Yes.
That's exactly why I wrote that, because I see it all the time at my job. I'm like, why does he have you? Why are you sitting here 2 hours after class is over waiting on somebody that's not at work? Now, if he was at work, then I really couldn't say much. He's not at work. What is he doing?
In your car.
In your
We
car.
have allowed it
We've
to
allowed it to
happen.
happen.
We don't stand up as mentors,
It's
as
true.
mentees, and tell these young women that this is not
It's not
acceptable. We just like, okay, well, he's paying your bills. Okay, we're gonna let it happen. We'll let this slide. No, because I will get out and get 2 or 3 jobs before I have to deal with it.
The thing about it is, acceptance is a sign of commitment.
Yeah.
Once you accept whatever it is that they're offering, now you're committed to do whatever it is that they want you to do.
Ma'am.
Listen, this is what they used to say old school. They used to say, don't start nothing you're not willing to continue.
That's right.
That's right.
If you're not going to keep doing it, so if you started it, then they're going to expect it to continue.
But I still feel like it goes back to the moms. I'm
It
sorry.
does. It does.
Because my girls both have their own car at 24 and 20. They got them like at 18. And I can promise you, there ain't going to be no man who going to be
Driving
taking my
that
girl's
vehicle.
car and dropping them off somewhere.
Yeah.
Mama taught them.
You gotta teach them.
You have to teach them.
You gotta teach
You have
them. So, ladies, this has been wonderful. We are going to get ready to go into our next segment. Joining us today, talking about the feminization of the African American male, is none other than Pastor Jermail Johnson, pastor over at the Word Church here in Houston, Texas. He's actually going to become one of our recurring co-hosts. We've talked about it, and listen, he's such an amazing guy that I think that he needs to be here frequently to let us know his position on some of the issues that we talk about. So we'll be back in a moment with Real Life, Real Faith in a minute. welcome back to Real Life, Real Faith with Cheryl, Lacey, Donovan. Today, the person that we have as our guest is no stranger to Real Life, Real Faith. Actually, I think that he is a recurring co-host. That's what I'm going to say. Yes. All right? Pastor Jamel Johnson with the Word Church here in Houston, Texas. And our topic today has been the feminization of the male, in particularly the African American male. And, you know, I've heard this saying before, and I may get it mixed up a little bit, but I've heard people say before that we raise our daughters and we love or coddle, or I don't know what other words you could put in there, our sons. Right. And I wonder, you know, if some of that may even be responsible for the situations that we're seeing in our communities right now. Because for me, and we talked about this on one of the other segments in one of the other broadcasts, about whether it's fear and intimidation versus something else. And in my mind, I'm thinking that it's not that. It's more a feeling of superiority, supremacy, as well as entitlement. And could that entitlement and supreme feeling come from the fact that people perceive our African American males in particular as being weak or feminized, because many of them, you know, are unemployed. Many of them are at home flipping channels on the remote instead of taking care of families. And, you know, I'm just putting it out there because I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. Right. But I wanted to get some of your opinions on those topics.
Right. And I would start off by saying this, and I agree wholeheartedly with your assumption and quoting the statement that we do raise our daughters. Mm-hmm. But if we look at the structure of the typical African American home, it is typically being led by a single mother. Absolutely. And so now what happens with the thought process with that single mother is that I'm training my daughter not to follow into my footsteps.
This is true.
So I am excuse me, I'm harder on her. I am trying to get her to be as independent as she can be. Right. I don't want her to have to depend on anybody else. But then now when I have a male child, he now in turn becomes the prince of the home. So now that thought process of me trying to ensure that my daughter does not experience what I experience, I don't have that same push for my son. And so, excuse me, I was reading a very interesting article that talked about how we are moving from the actual physical incest with the African American mother, mm-hmm. and moving to more of a mental incest.
Wow, maybe even emotional.
Emotional. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking pictures with my son, and mm-hmm. I'm saying that he's my little man, and I'm dressing him to where we are dressing alike, and so now we are seen in pictures together. And so now what happens is that sense of entitlement comes in, that once I breach the front door of the home, I'm expecting everyone else to give me what I am getting back at home. Right. So I'm not getting that balance. I'm not getting that nurturer and that disciplinarian. I'm only getting that nurturer. Now, to your point about the feminization, I believe, of the African American male, we have to start where I believe it starts, because it does not start with the feminization of the African American male. It starts with the emasculation of the African American man. So it starts there where we are trying to strip them of being masculine. Right. And I believe that started all the way back in slavery.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I believe that mental shift was taken from us, because anytime you take a man out of his domain where he's in control, where he is the one that calls the shots, and now he is subservient to somebody else, because you now have to think about, you had men who literally had to watch a master take their wife, and could not say anything. So if that continued to happen over and over and over again, I lost my voice. Right. And so then if I ever tried to regain that voice inside of the home, then now this wife that I allowed somebody else to take advantage of, she now has no respect for me, because I want to put my foot down in the home, but I can't say anything outside the house. Yeah. So then now you think about that. If that started at the top, then now you have a young man that's in the house that saw that same thing happen. So now he's learning by way of how daddy had to handle himself outside. And so maybe he's now adjusting and adapting. And so every generation, as the Bible say, we're getting weaker and wiser. So what's happening is I'm smart. We're smarter in this generation far beyond what our foreparents were. But as those generations have gone down, it's trickled down. So now we're not promoting masculinity in our generation because now the lines are blurred.
Right.
Because we think about how the generations have broken down. So I think that that's the first thing. So now when I snatch your masculinity from you, now the only thing that I tell you is being feminine is what's accepted.
Right.
So now if masculinity is taken from me and masculinity is not being given back to me, because now what we've done, we've associated masculinity with sports.
Exactly.
And so now if I'm not playing sports, then the only alternative is the feminine option. And so because there aren't so many successful, powerful, masculine pictures of African American men, we're now seeing a shifting of the guard where most who are successful happen to be African American women.
Right.
So now as a young man, what do I have to look up to? So I don't even have the neighborhood guy that will come out and throw the football with me, because chances are several of those neighborhood guys are locked up in jail.
Right.
So then now, because we've snatched away the masculinity of the man, and then those who are masculine, they don't know how to cohabitate in this thing called life. So now they're fighting for territory, they're fighting for colors, they're fighting for streets, they're fighting for corners, and then at the end of the fight, one ends up in jail and one ends up dead.
Right.
So then who is the model that this young boy is supposed to pattern his life after, other than the mother that's in the house,
All the time.
who possibly grew up in a single parent home herself and did not have that example of who? There was a saying when I was growing up that it takes a village to raise a child.
Absolutely. It was when I was growing up too.
We don't normally hear that anymore.
We don't hear them.
We don't hear that anymore
We don't.
because I believe that the village has been desecrated.
Yes.
And so now what has happened is the only thing that is left in the village is I.
And that's all we look at. You know, I think that what you're saying, I see it as it has trickled down in our society. Because even with the welfare system, when they created the welfare system, if there is a male in the home, that male has to hide when the welfare people come around.
Right.
Because they don't think that a male should be there in order to help facilitate that family getting off welfare. And I really believe that was that has also been something that has desecrated our communities, because rather than being a hand up, it's become a hand out.
Right.
And many of the individuals that get on there, I mean, I can't even say for myself that if I was on it and you were paying for my housing, you were paying for my medical care, you're paying for my food, and then you come and say, okay, well, you need to get off of this. Well, and I don't know, I don't have any skills, I don't have any education, then I'm not going to know what to do with that. And then on top of that, you're taking the male out of the home.
Right.
As if he's a non-factor. Well, let us take care of you. And again, it goes back to superiority and supremacy and entitlement. We're taking care of you now.
Right. And there was a study that I read. It was very eye-opening. Now, this study happened in 1947.
Ooh, that was before my time.
And so what they did is they said that in a box, now they called the study the project. So they had a box, and they put rats inside of the box. And so what happened was they put a little cheese inside of the box. Now they had more rats in there that could actually maintain themselves in the box, but they put cheese in there. And so then once the cheese was eaten, well, then the rats, they survived off of what was inside. But none of the rats tried to get out. So for survival, the rats start to eat themselves. Now, if you think about our projects,
Exactly.
we have just enough to survive. And then when those resources are shortened, then we don't try to get out. We end up eating the ones that are there with us.
Yeah.
Hence, it's to the reason why there is so much bloodshed in Chicago. Half of that city is built on projects.
Yeah.
So we have been mentally reconditioned to kill for ours rather than work together to develop something that's brand new. Now, I'm an avid reader. This is something that blew my mind. James Amos, John Amos, who played James on
Good Times.
On Good Times.
Yes.
Well, you notice after a certain point of time, all of a sudden
He was gone.
James is off of the TV show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, years later, he did an interview, and he said
saw that.
that the producers said that this was not real life. That this was not, we were perpetrating something on television that was not accurate. You did not have African American men living in a home
Wow. I remember
with
seeing
a
that.
family, so they killed him off the show. And so from that, then we started to see what they said was the approved picture of what was happening in the African American home. A mother that's trying to keep it together, that's working small jobs. Then you have an older brother who attempts to be the man of the house.
Right.
You have a sister who really has no direction, has a lot of potential, but doesn't
Right.
have direction. And then you have a young boy who feels like he can change the world, but he's strapped because he's bound because of his color. But did you see how the storyline shifted
Yeah.
once the daddy was gone?
Yeah.
And so I believe that even in that, we perpetrated it, that even now in 2015, you don't see any wholesome TV shows
You do not.
that are promoting any type of family values or promoting, matter of fact, anything that would progress this culture. Everything that we see now is really making the culture take a step back.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing now, we're not finding masculine men that we can put in the forefront. We are trying to get everybody to receive the notion that it's okay.
Yeah.
And so we're having now 6-year-old boys who want to be called girls. I even saw the story a couple of weeks ago that there was a child care worker who was fired because she
Right.
would not address a child
Right.
who was a boy. She would not address him as a girl. So now we are not even giving the children an opportunity to identify themselves. You know, at 6, we probably thought that we could be Superman.
Everything.
We thought that
Firefighters, policemen,
that we
all
were
of
gonna,
that.
we were going to do everything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't
Yeah.
until the wind hit our face probably 20 years later that we realized, okay, well, this
Maybe not.
this is the path that I'm going to go down.
Yeah.
You know, so they're not even given a chance to identify who they are because of, I still go back to it, I believe that there's no net around
Yeah.
our generation here.
And you know, when I had
say
Big
that, I
Mama,
think about
and Mama and them, and all of
Right.
them, and now Big Mama and Mama might be 30 years old and still in the club dropping it like it's hot, right? with the kids.
With the
and,
kids.
and I probably shouldn't even say this because when I say this, the individual may even recognize themselves in it, but it just is what it is. I've seen that for a 40-year-old that is addressing her son with a name other than his name, that really, you know, Papa or Daddy or
Right.
whatever. And I'm like, this is your kid. He's a 20-year-old kid.
Right.
And when you go out into different environments and areas, you're in the club with your kid and you're partying with your kid, and there has to be something innately wrong with that.
Right.
And you're right. A lot of us love Good Times. I watch Good Times. My husband loves Good Times.
Right.
But you're right. It was a way to culturally condition us, and not just us, even white people. You know, when they see that again, that's what they think. Oh, well, yeah, we're superior to that.
Right.
We're entitled. And the reason why we want to get rid of you is because we don't want you to come after what is innately ours, because we are entitled to this. This is ours.
Right.
We are superior to you and you don't deserve it. So we're going to push you out of the way and get you off the scene. I'm not afraid of you. I am entitled. It's
Right.
mine, and I'm not going to let you come get what's mine.
Right. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's sad to say that that's the way this generation feels as well. This is a very entitled generation.
Exactly.
But the thing about it is that where we may have another ethnic group that feels that, they are now keeping us away from theirs.
Yeah, exactly.
But we are keeping ourselves away from everything.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, we are entitled and we still have nothing.
And we still have nothing.
But they have a sense of entitlement, but they are protecting legacy. So now with that thought process being said, I believe that everyone wakes up in the morning with the same 24 hours.
Exactly.
But
What you going to do with it?
But if somebody has told you that somebody is trying to keep you from something, that it doesn't matter how hard you try, you'll never get it, well, we're subliminally planting a seed in their head. And so now what happens is I'd rather let you get it, and then I come and take what you have worked for. So once again,
no work ethic.
it's none.
Don't want to work for it.
They don't. And I believe that we are perpetrating that in every facet. And so if this generation is the same from that thought process, it is not just going to be that thought process with the unsuccessful ones. It's going to be that same thought process with the successful ones, or the ones that appear to be successful. So we will have some pastors that may start a church today and feel that they should be at 1,000 members tomorrow. And so I have to figure out, how do I get there? And it doesn't work like that. You have somebody who may start off want to be an entrepreneur. Well, they're ready to retire in 6 months. Well, you haven't even gotten a website yet.
Or an author that thinks that they're going to be a bestseller tomorrow, but they're not going to do the work that it takes to get to where they need to go. And wow, that is just an epiphany for me, because that is so true. Because sometimes people, even in my situation, they'll look at me and they go, oh, you're doing so much, and you're doing well, but that's what it takes. It doesn't happen overnight. I heard somebody say one time that it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. There's a whole lot of stuff that went behind the scenes to get. By the time you see that person out there and they're successful and they're a bestseller and they sold 1 million copies, it was a whole lot of work that went behind that. And some of that work required sometimes you may not have had the money to do it, but you found the money. I'm not gonna lie to nobody. I have double drawn my account before and put it in the negative because I believed in what I wanted to do to make sure that it happened. I have driven overnight to a place because I wanted to make sure that I got there for whatever it was that I needed to do, because I believed in what I was doing and I wanted to make it happen. And that faith without works is dead, and waiting on somebody else to do the work for you is, and I think that that's where we are right now. A lot of the people that are sitting on what a white man this and the white man that, doing the working with the remote control, and the white man, no, the white man can't do anything. Well, how about you get up and go start a lawn service, go start a cleaning service, whatever it is, to make wherever you're trying to get, it's going to take some work on your part to make it happen.
And to that point, that's why I've been very adamant of the nickname that we give young men. You know, this is my little man. And I think that's an oxymoron within itself. There's no way that a man is little. So what happens is I began to flood your mind with that thought that you are a man, but you are still having all of the responsibilities taken care of by somebody else. Which is the reason why I hate to see it, but you'll drive up to a gas station and the son is in the car while the mother is pumping the gas.
The devil is lying.
So once again,
get out this car.
So once again, it's a continual reprogramming of the mind. So we're not programming our young men now to be warriors. We're not programming our young men now to be innovators. What we're creating them to do is that if you can't run a football, you can't shoot a basketball, you can't swing at a baseball, well then this is your only other option. And we know those only other options are slim. And that will end us up either in jail
or dead.
And so I believe that the way that we kind of bring it around full circle is that there has to be a standard that is set. And we challenge everybody, first of all, to get back to the thought process that your house is the place where it starts and it begins. So there has to be some principles that are passed down. This is one of the things that I love about Roots. One thing that Alex Haley showed us from Roots is that there was a story that was passed down from generation to generation to generation. One thing that I believe that we have stopped doing, we've stopped talking. And so the only thing that we're doing now is buying. So our children are not understanding that they're sleeping in a bed from Rent-A-Center. So in their head, all they see is just a fully furnished home.
Or our bank is, what is that, Cash America or Ace, cash a check.
Or we're living from paycheck to paycheck, and in between that paycheck to paycheck, we're cushioned by a payday loan to the paycheck. So with that thought process being said, there has to be a redirecting of our energy. And I think, and this is a literal term for writers, I think we're living in an era of plagiarism.
Wow.
We are attempting to live a life that's not ours, but take the credit as if we did the work. And so what is happening is I would rather go and buy a $30 purse with LVs on there to perpetrate to somebody else that this is who I am and this is
Right.
what I have.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I really can't. I walk past the Louis Vuitton store in the Galleria and I don't even know what it is because it's spelled Louis Vuitton. And I think that the store is supposed to have
LV. Right. Or you have a Cadillac as long as the driveway, right? But you living in CUNY Homes, which is a project here in Houston. You live in CUNY Homes, but you got a Cadillac out there though, and it looks
And now-
nice. It's got some 20s or whatever them things is. They put on the chrome rims and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, not even the generation of the millennials, even the generation before, that generation between 35 to 45. Well, now that sense of achievement is this, which is very scary. That sense of achievement is to have a corner office, to be able to wear an Anne Klein suit, to be able to wear a Hugo Boss suit for our brothers, to drive a foreign car, and to live in a gated community, all in an attempt to be affirmed by somebody that don't want us there in the first place. So then it's now not even the great white flight, it's the great black flight. So we're running away from our culture. We're running away from our neighborhoods. It's to the reason why when I go back into our traditional neighborhoods in the city of Houston, driving through your Acres homes, going through your Trinity Gardens, going through your Fifth Wards, it looks like it has a bomb has gone off.
Like a ghost town.
Yeah, because everybody has run out. But now what is left behind? We are leaving behind the generation that the baton was supposed to be passed.
Exactly.
So the reason why Elijah and Elisha's relationship was so amazing is because the mentee had a mentor, and he said, "I want what you have." And so the mentor said, "If you stay close to me, there's gonna come a day I'm gonna toss it, because the mantle has no need in heaven. The mantle needs to stay in the earth realm."
Exactly.
So all that says is that when I go up, there needs to be somebody that I'm training to go up with me, that when I have gotten to that place of success, I can now pass it back to my successor. But now if we are in an area to where we are afraid of our own brown and black brothers and sisters, well then what happens is at that point is I push them away. So now even with that, there is a responsibility for us.
Right.
Because before we do this to this generation, we're going to have to do this. Even Jesus said, "With loving kindness have I drawn thee." And so it's a confused time in our country, period.
Yeah.
But even more so, it's a confused time for Black America. But I believe that he has called some heralds in the last day, some oracles that that will open their mouth and that will go back, just as after that 70 years of exile was over for the children of Israel. There was a remnant that went back in and said, well, the Babylonians tore up Israel, but now it's time for us to rebuild.
And you know what? We're going to stop right there, because Real Life, Real Faith is part of that remnant. We want you to know that, all right? Because we're going to go back and we're going to get them. We're going to do all we can to make sure that our brothers and our sisters get to where they need to get, to help them shift and change those mindsets. So when we know better, we do better. Pastor Jamel, I love you. Thank you so much for being here. All right. This is Real Life, Real Faith with Cheryl, Lacey, Donovan. Will be back in just a moment.
God, it's me, Cheryl. Life Lessons for the Virtuous Woman is a book that I've written that gives you some pearls of wisdom that I've learned over my lifetime. It's great to have passion. It's great to have purpose. But if you don't have a plan, everything else is going to fail. If you're looking for validation by comparing yourself to others, then you're setting yourself up for failure. You don't know what kind of hell they had to go through to get where they are. Scripture reminds us there is a time and a place for everything. We just have to learn how to give time. None of us has actually fully arrived. We are all under construction. Life is too short to waste on unforgiveness. People are not really thinking about you anyway.
Welcome back to Real Life, Real Faith. Today we're introducing a new segment entitled Wisdom for Everyday Life. And I have my sister girl here, Esther Renee, right? She's not a novice at this. We've done this before. I remember when we first started, Esther, we were in my kitchen at a table similar to this one, trying to make sure that we got some wisdom out to everybody that was watching. So today we are excited to welcome you for Wisdom for Everyday Life. You're welcome. And we're going to be talking about Haggai, the first chapter. And Haggai, the first chapter is very interesting. Yes. Because when we look at it in retrospect to where they were in the Old Testament, they were talking about the physical temple. Yes. But in my mind, for the word for now from the prophet Haggai is for us to work on our spiritual temple, what's on the inside of us, because we know that the Spirit of God is no longer residing in the temple that they built back in the for the Israelites. Thank God. Yeah, thank God, because they had to do a lot. The priests had to go in and make all these sacrifices, and if they didn't do it right, they would get killed. Out right, you know, they might die. Wasn't good. Wasn't that good? Not good. But we know when the veil was rent from top to bottom, when Jesus died and gave up his spirit, that the Spirit of God no longer resided there, but it resided on the inside of us. So I think the word from Haggai now for us today is that we need to be building our spiritual temples. But this is what it says. It said, "Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, this people say, the time is not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built." And don't we say that all the time?
All the time. And I think the reason why we say that is because people have it twisted, in my opinion. I believe that when they think of temple, whenever we say temple, they refuse to think of this because this is hard to look at and want to do something about. So it's easier to say the temple of God, which means the house, the church, the physical building, rather than think about the temple that God resides in. So I think that sometimes they do it out of fear.
That could be. Could be. You know, because then it means I'm going to have to turn the mirror on myself and look at me and look at my imperfections and insecurities.
Yeah, and I also think that the reason why they reject both, right? You know, because we're talking about that temple, the building, and then we're talking about us, the people. So when you think about the building, most people want to reject that temple because they're afraid to commit to being financially committed to helping build that temple. So it's really like they take the lesser of two evils in their mind.
Yeah.
And so I just believe that we need to stop doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and it says it.
It says it. So it goes on to say this. It says, Then came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, Is it time for you, O ye, to dwell in your sealed houses, and this house lie in waste? And when I read that, for us now, I'm thinking, we spend a lot of time on our physical appearance. We spend a lot of time, you know, with our makeup and with our clothes and, you know, the facade that we put on for everybody. But on the inside, the real house, the real temple, how does it say it? It says, lies in waste. It lies in waste. We jacked up on this. We look good on the outside, but we're jacked up on the inside.
When I read that, and I've read this many times, but I think because I was studying for this segment, and I read that last night, it was like, wow, you know what? How many of us are so often perpetrating this thing that you see? And then when they really get, say you want a relationship, right? And you try to fix all of this up on the outside, and you meet that guy, and then you hear the guy say, man, it's not what it looked like.
Right.
And you want to know why they don't call back. You want to know why they're not talking to you no more, or why they don't commit to you, why you in this relationship for 8 years instead of being engaged before then. But the truth is, what are you presenting?
Yeah.
If you just taking care of this,
And there's nothing in here. You're
nothing
empty.
in here, and it's lying in waste,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
meaning toxic,
Yeah, yeah.
then what are you giving back to somebody else?
Because that's really what people, that's really what draws people to you, is what's on the inside. They may initially get with the physical, but what keeps them there is what's on the inside.
Okay, so let's go to the church. You're supposed to be building the kingdom, right? And so if we are steady fixing all this up on the outside, preachers included, and that inside is laying in waste, I would like to propose that is a reason why people are shying away, and the church is having a hard time to manifest a committed group of people to do what we need to do to build God's kingdom, because they feel what you give out.
Exactly. Exactly.
So if you're inside, you looking good on the outside, boo, you driving that car, you doing all that stuff, but when you get on the inside and it's ugly, it's in waste, you perpetrate that. You give that out, whether you know it or not.
And you know what? Even if we're still talking about the physical building, even with the physical building, it may be a beautiful edifice.
Yes.
Stained glass windows and beautiful, ornate doors and ornate pews and all of that. But when you come inside,
What do you feel?
the Spirit of God is not there. Having a form of godliness but no power.
Yes.
The
I
Spirit ain't
remember
there.
walking into a church one time, and I promise you, I felt the presence of God so heavy, it made me cry. I just hit the door and I just started crying. And it did, every time I went there, it would happen.
Yeah.
And then one time I went there, it wasn't there no more.
Wow.
It just, I looked for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes.
And that's what draws the people, because they do look for it.
Yes.
I'm looking for what I felt. It's almost like cocaine or whatever. That first high, I'm looking
I
for
can tell you
that.
about that.
Every time, yeah, I know you can. But every time you come, you're looking for that. And when it's not there, then you're kind of lost.
And I think people miss it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they miss it. Of course they do. Of course they do. So then it goes on to say, ye have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages to put it into a bag with holes. And my question is, when you say you eat, but you're not, what are you eating?
That's what I was going to go there.
When you drink, what are you drinking? Are you drinking of the Spirit of God, or are you drinking of your own juice?
Hello.
You reading your own press and believing what people, all this stuff that's superficial and on the outside.
I love what it says in my version. It says you have planted much, but harvest little.
You get nothing.
You eat, but you're not satisfied. You drink, but you are still thirsty. You put clothes on, but cannot keep warm.
You're not about to fire gold.
Oh, Jesus.
You're not about to fire gold.
Your wages disappear as though you are putting them in pockets filled with holes. I'm telling you, Cheryl, I have come to this place in my life where I don't want to, food is just for fuel, okay? But when we're talking about building your body, building the temple, we need to feed.
This is your food.
We need
the
to
Word of God
feed.
is your
And I think
Feed the
people
spirit
are
man.
so stuck on how they feed that they just don't do it because they're afraid they're not doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is part of the reason. But I also think that we're not teaching people how to feed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're teaching people what they're supposed to listen to.
Yeah.
But we're
Entertaining them.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're not saying, look, let's have a Bible study on just this book, and we're going to talk about how you would study
Line by line. So we can make sure we get it. It's like what we're doing now.
Exactly. That's why I love what we do.
Then it says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. So in other words, you need to think about what you're doing now, because it ain't right. Go up to the mountain and bring wood and build the house, and I will take pleasure in it, and I will be glorified, saith the Lord. And I took some time out to look at how the timber industry works. And they talked about legal ways and illegal ways that you can go and get timber.
Yeah.
And one of the illegal ways is to go up there and cut somebody else's timber down.
Off their land.
That's not none of yours. And then try to claim it for yourself. How many of us just need to stay in our lane? I'm over here trying to get your anointing. I'm over here trying to get your blessing. I'm over here trying to get, instead of saying, can I go up into the mountain and get my own stuff? And when I think about going into the mountain and into the hills in order to do that, I'm speaking of spiritual things.
Yes.
Heavenly things.
Yes.
Thinking on those things that are good, those things that are pure, those things that are of good rapport.
Okay, but Cheryl, listen, if they don't do, go back. All right, I had this vision that we have to go up to the mountain, right, to pull this timber down. And he said, be careful, look at yourself, all right? So, Socrates says, a life unexamined is a life not worth living.
Absolutely.
So I might go up to the mountain.
But if I'm not going to look at myself,
You better stop. I can go up there and get all the right timber.
But if I'm not willing to look at myself,
because it's lying in waste, the timber is just that timber.
It's just timber. I can't do nothing. I can't build a house
Can't build
because I don't have the right tools in order to do it. All I got is some
I can
timber.
look
Just
like
laying
I'm
there.
building,
I can look like it,
and it could look all good on the outside again.
but ain't nothing
But if
inside.
I haven't cleaned up this waste, then I went up to the mountain
For nothing.
in God's face to receive the Holy of Holies and come back down with it just in my hands and doing nothing.
Then it says, you looked for much, and lo, it came to little. And when ye brought it home, I did blow upon it. Why, saith the Lord of hosts? Because of mine house that is waste, and ye run every man unto his house. And it's just like you just said. If you're not willing to look at it, he's just saying,
That's
the Lord's
a
not
waste
even,
of time.
it's a waste of time.
Waste of time.
Why are we even doing all
You
that?
wasting my time, you wasting God's time. All them folks that God then put up under you to shepherd and to teach and to build and all of that, you're wasting time. And now we want to know why our children are the way they are. We want to
Why
know
our
why
world is like it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why relationships are falling apart because we're not building the kingdom in the way that God ordained us to do it. Listen, someone said to me recently that really made me think that church is becoming about a business
Yeah.
rather than a growth
Yeah.
opportunity. And so I just believe that we need to take the time out to be more about building the kingdom for real.
Yeah. And the souls.
The
Because that's
souls.
what's building the kingdom, the souls. Not the money, not the building, not any of that
None
stuff
of
that
that
we're
stuff.
concentrating on.
Yes.
So then it says, and I called for a drought upon the land. Anybody ever been in a drought in your life and wondered why? Maybe you need to go build some timber and look at yourself. And upon the mountains, and upon the corn, and upon the new wine, and upon the oil, and upon that which the ground bringeth forth, and upon men, and upon cattle, and upon all the labor of the hands. So you busy working, and you in a drought because you just ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing. Then Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, with all the remnant of the people, obeyed the voice of the Lord. Can somebody say obey?
Obey.
Obey the voice of the Lord their God and the words of Haggai the prophet, as the Lord their God had sent him. And the people did fear before the Lord. Then spake Haggai, the Lord's messenger, in the Lord's message unto the people, saying, I am with you, saith the Lord. They had to obey. They had to do it, and I think that's what we're missing. We're not being obedient. We're obedient to everything else around us. We're obedient to our boss on our job, so obedient to our parents, and that's a good thing, don't get me wrong.
I get it.
But none of us are really being obedient to God.
You know, how do we build kingdoms if we're not being obedient? And then that means that God is telling you to do certain things with certain people, right? That could help build this kingdom. But you so stuck on who gonna come to church if you do that. And so now, because
And who name come first? Who name gonna be first on the billing when we get ready to do this conference? And who gonna pray and who gonna get to be the keynote and does it matter?
and it's so sad because you got your set people in place, they can't do what God has called them to do.
Yeah. At the very end, in the 14th verse, it says this, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people, and they came and did work in the house of the Lord of hosts, their God, in the 24th day of the 6th month, in the 2nd year of Darius the king. And that's where we all need to find ourselves. The remnant together, working for God, being obedient to God, and doing what he told us to do, which was go out and bring people to him.
It's about building the kingdom, and we're not waiting to get to heaven to build the kingdom.
Yeah.
We're building the kingdom right here on earth.
On earth
and
as it is in heaven.
And that is not what we're doing.
I love you, Esther. Thank you for joining us today. Esther Renee Wright and I with Wisdom for Everyday Life. Back in a moment on Real Life, Real Faith. So today we've been talking about the feminization of the African American male. And I think one thing that we all know for sure is that it's going to take the entire community to make a change. We need to come together, men, women of African American descent, and do everything that we can to change our community from the inside out. We want to remind you, as always, that God can do exceedingly and abundantly more than you could ever ask or think, according to the power that worketh in you. Be blessed.